So good evening everyone. So in this session we'll cover up some of the basic problems uh, for your magnetic disk, and so we will continue from magnetic disk itself. So is the stream okay? Hello, is the stream okay? Okay, so we will see some of the basic problems relating to your magnetic disk. Okay, so this is the basic structure of a magnetic disk. I hope all of you are aware with it because we have seen it in the books. So first there are platters, right? So this platter sometimes is also referred to as cylinder. Now each disk is divided into tracks, and each track is again divided into sectors. So I hope this thing is okay. Now factors affecting disk performance we have seen, uh, to or the time taken by the disk to complete the IO request is called disk service time or disk access time. So there are five parameters basically. Basically the three parameters on top are used, like seek time, rotational latency, and your data transfer rate. But for competitive exams you might also get this controller overhead, queuing delay. Although these are not used that generally, but you should know that these things are also sometimes taken into account. Although they are minimal in comparison to the rest of the three, but still sometimes in some questions you might get this. Okay, so seek time, rotational delay, data transfer rate, controller overhead, queuing delay. Okay, so we will see what is this seek time. Okay, seek time, as you all know, is the time taken by the read write head to reach the desired track in my magnetic disk. Okay, so it has got three four variants, basically means how you can actually quantify it. So first is full stroke. Okay, so it is the time taken by the read write head to move across the entire width of the disk from innermost track to the outermost track. Okay, so this is the full stroke access time. Okay, so this might be given. Now if sometimes they might give you this full stroke value, so from this full stroke value how can you determine this average time? So roughly your average time, average seek time is one third of my full stroke time. And sometimes track to track means it is the, say if it is in the second track and if you want to move to the fifth track, so this questions I mean it will, these things will be given in the question, so based on the requirement of the question you can evaluate it. Okay, so these things are quite important for your gate point of view. You can read it. Next comes your rotational latency. So what is this rotational latency? So first you will move your head, after this the disk will rotate. So why is it rotating? So that the desired sector comes under your read write head. So this is basically known as rotational latency, or sometimes also or it might be called as your latency also. Okay, only to confuse you, they might only give you as this term as latency. Okay, but you should remember in case of your disk access, I mean if you're trying to find out the disk performance, so latency will generally mean your rotational latency. Okay, so what is this average rotational latency? It is half of the time taken for full rotation. So we are always considering this average case. Why? Because there might be 3-4 cases, right? Sometimes your disk head might be in between some, sometimes it might be say very close to your I mean sector, sometimes it might be far away from the sector. So generally they take up this average rotational latency value. Next comes data transfer rate, means the amount of time required to transfer the data or to read the data. Okay, controller overhead. So what is this? The overhead imposed by the disk controller is called as controller overhead, means it is basically a terminology which is related to your control circuitry. Okay, now next comes your queuing delay. The time spent waiting for the disk to become free is called a queuing delay. So I hope all of you are aware that whenever we go for an IO request, we are going for a sequential access. Okay, so sometimes the cases might be that other processes are reading from the magnetic disk. So your process or the process which is getting executed, it might have to wait until that operation completes. Okay, so this is your queuing delay. Okay, next comes your something known as storage density. So I hope this term is self-explanatory in nature, means what is the storage or how much storage can be provided in the tracks. Okay, so here it is given that outermost track has the maximum storage density, sorry, innermost has the maximum storage density and outermost has the minimum storage density. So these densities are with respect to the uh, can you say it is with respect to which sort of disk organization? Morning only we have seen it. We had seen some disk layout mechanisms, right? So can you say with respect to which layout mechanism this will be true? Innermost track has maximum storage density, outermost track has minimum storage density. So this is with respect to your CAV scheme, means constant angular velocity. So traditionally we are following this CAV scheme. Okay. Now, yes. Okay. So disk access time. So disk access time is basically the summation of seek time, rotational delay, transfer time, controller overhead, and queuing delay. Okay. So this is your disk access time and average disk access time. So these terms are a bit different. This is the actual disk access time and this is the average disk access time. So you have to remember this while solving the problems. What is being asked in the question, whether it is for disk access time or average disk access time. So if it is for average disk access time, you will use average seek time plus average rotational delay plus transfer time, controller overhead, and queuing delay. Okay, so controller overhead, queuing delay, these are almost constant. Okay, and also these are very marginal with respect to the other delays. Okay, so next comes here average seek time calculation. So we have seen that this is one third of the time taken for a full stroke. Now if you are calculating it or calculating the seek time to move from one track to other track, so this is basically the formula. So 0 to k minus 1 times t divided by 2. Okay, so this is the average time. Next comes your average rotational latency. So what is this? This is half of the time taken for one full rotation, right? So this is also, I think, clear. Next comes, so this and rest of the terms are with respect to my storage. Okay, so first comes capacity of the disk pack. So multiple disks are there which are known as your cylinders. So what is the capacity of a particular disk pack? It is total number of surface multiplied by number of tracks per surface multiplied by number of sectors per track into storage capacity of one track. So this is the capacity of the disk pack. Next comes formatting overhead. Okay, so this is not related to any delay or time estimation, it is related to your capacity estimation. So I hope all of you know that whenever we are storing anything in our hard disk, it is stored in some particular format. Okay, so for each of the format there is a formatting overhead. So what is this formatting overhead? So number of sectors into overhead per sector. So there will be an overhead associated with each sector. Okay, so formatting overhead is just the multiplication of it. Then formatted disk space means what is the amount of disk space that will be lost due to this formatting. Okay, so it is total disk capacity minus formatting overhead. So I hope all of you have seen that whenever you purchase a pen drive or any such sort of devices, if it is 8 GB, you are actually not getting entire 8 GB, you are getting something lesser than your 8 GB. Say for example, if you have purchased a 8 GB pen drive. Okay, so after this you have got recording density or storage density, means it is with respect to the track how much density is there. So capacity of the track divided by circumference of the track. Okay, next comes track capacity. I think it is very easy to understand what is the capacity of the track. So recording density of the track multiplied by circumference of the track. Next comes data transfer rate. So what is the rate of transfer of the data? So number of heads multiplied by capacity of one track multiplied by number of rotations in 1 second. Okay, so if how many rotations you can make in 1 second divided multiplied with number of heads which are there and capacity of each track, so this will basically cover up your data transfer rate. Next comes tracks per surface. I think it is very easy to understand. What is the number of tracks in an individual surface? So outer radius minus inner radius divided by inter track gap. Okay, so all of you are aware that tracks are placed one after another, and in between each track some space is kept. Okay, so this is your inter track gap. Why this is kept? So that there is no interleaving among the data, or there is no chance of corruption. So some amount of space means the entire circular portion won't be used because some gap will be there in between the tracks. So this is you have to also address this. Okay, so so these are the parameters which are related to your disk magnetic disk performance. So any doubts up till now? Any doubts? So any doubts? So okay, we'll move to the next section. Okay, so next section basically we'll see some of the problems. You can see the PDF that I shared, it is there. So consider a disk pack with the following specification: 16 surfaces, 128 tracks per surface, 256 sectors per track, and 512 bytes per sector. Okay, so this is the specification of the disk pack that you have got. Now you are to find what is the capacity of the disk pack, what is the number of bits required to address the sector. If the format overhead is 32 per sector, what is the formatted disk space? If the format overhead is 64 bytes per sector, how much amount of memory is lost due to formatting? Okay. If the diameter of the innermost track is 21 centimeter, what is the maximum recording density? If the diameter of the innermost track is 21 centimeter with 2 kb per centimeter, what is the capacity of one track? If the disk is rotating at 3600 rpm, what is the data transfer rate? Okay, so first is capacity of the disk pack, sorry. So total number of surfaces multiplied by number of tracks per surface multiplied by number of sectors per track multiplied by number of bytes per sector. So I think this is very easy to understand. Means you will find out the entire capacity, means total number of surfaces multiplied by total number of tracks multiplied by total number of sectors along with the number of bytes which are or which can be stored in a particular sector. So this will give you the overall capacity of the disk pack. Okay, so next comes number of bits required to address sector. Okay, so to find this you need to find out the total number of sectors. Okay, so total number of sectors, how you can find? Total number of surfaces multiplied by number of tracks per surface multiplied by number of sectors per track. So you are only finding out the total number of sectors. So this is, you are getting this roughly around 2 to the power 19. So you can address a sector with 19 bits. So I don't think this calculation is very difficult, and it is also not that very difficult to understand also. Next comes formatted disk space, means how much disk space will be available to you after formatting. So total number of sectors multiplied by overhead per sector. So if you see question number 3, they have given the format overhead. So it is 32 bytes per sector. So you just multiply it with the total number of sectors. So this will be your space which will be required for formatting the disk. So you just subtract it from the total space. So you will get your formatted disk space. Okay. Next comes formatting overhead. So if you see question number 4, they have again given if the format overhead is 64 bytes per sector, how much amount of memory is lost due to formatting. So this is the same thing, only you are just finding the formatting overhead. Only thing, they have just changed the formatting overhead from 32 to 64 bytes here. Okay. Next comes maximum recording density. So storage capacity of the track, which is your storage capacity of the track. So number of sectors per track multiplied by number of bytes per sector. Okay, so first what you are going to find out, you are going to find out the storage capacity of the track. Then next, with respect to the circumference, you will find out the, with respect to the area, you are going to find out the uh, you can say recording density. Okay, so first you have found out the storage capacity of a track. Okay, next, circumference of the innermost track, you can find out twice pi r, so pi into diameter. Now the maximum recording density is your recording density of innermost track. So if you remember the morning session, in CAV scheme, what you are doing, you are placing more density in towards the center, and as you are moving away from the center, you are reducing the density. So the highest density will be found towards the center. So you have to evaluate it with respect to the center or the innermost track. So the diameter of the innermost track is given, so you find out the circumference. Okay, or basically and then capacity of the track divided by circumference of the innermost track. So this will give you the maximum recording density. And how can you find out the minimum recording density? You will find out the circumference of the outermost track, and you just divide it by the storage capacity of a track, and you are going to get the minimum recording density of the track. Okay, so next comes capacity of the track. Okay, so what is the capacity of the track? So circumference of innermost track is given, capacity of a track is storage density of innermost track multiplied by circumference of the innermost track. So you will just multiply it and you will get the capacity of the innermost track. Okay, so here in the question, if you see, they have given the density of the innermost track, means the data density that can be, or the recording density, it is given as 2 kb per cm. Okay, so from there you can easily evaluate. So these are not the difficult problems, only thing is the terminologies you have to remember to an extent, and also you have to relate it like capacity, density, and this kind of things. So these things are not that difficult, only thing you are going to do is just multiply and divide. Next comes your data transfer rate. So if the disk is rotating at 3600 rpm, what is the data transfer rate? So to find out the data transfer rate, what we are doing, number of heads multiplied by capacity of one track into number of rotations in 1 second. So you can find out the rotation in 1 second. This will be 3600 divided by 60, and then you will just multiply this with the capacity of the track and with the number of heads. So if you multiply it, you are straight away going to get this as 120 mbps. So this will be the data transfer rate of the disk. Okay, so next problem we will see what is the so what is the average access time for transferring 500? So what is the average access time for transferring 512 bytes of data with following specifications? So average seek time is given, disk rotation is given, data rate is given, and controller overhead is also given. So what you are going to do, you are straight away going to sum the respective delays. Okay, so time taken for one full rotation, it is given, you can find it out easily. So it is 10 millisecond, you just divide this by 6000. Okay, why? Because this is given in rpm, so you have to 60 divided by 6000 means you are basically converting the rotations in per second. Sorry, in terms of your how many rotations can be made in a second. Okay, so please remember this while solving the problems, whether rotation is given in rpm or whether it is given in rotations per second. So this is very important. Sometimes if you miss this particular point, your entire sum will be wrong. Okay, so you have to keep this in mind. Next comes your data rate is given. So okay, we were here. So time taken for one full rotation you have found out. Then from this parameter you can find out the average rotational delay, so which is half of the time taken for one full rotation. Next comes transfer time. So to transfer 512 bytes of data, what is the data rate that you have got? Means how much time do you require to transfer this 512 bytes of data? So you'll just divide it the data you will divide it by the data transfer rate. So this will give you the time required to transfer this much amount of data. Next, average access time you can find average seek time plus average rotational delay plus transfer time plus controller overhead plus queuing delay. So 5 seek time is already given in the question. It is 5 millisecond plus 5 millisecond for your rotational latency plus transfer time plus controller overhead, and queuing delay has not been given here, so you can keep it as 0. So this will be your average access time. Okay, so I think next problems are also like this only. You can see it for yourself. I won't go there. So these are same only, nothing much different. So you can see the sample problems, and today I'll give you assignments based on the numericals which we have covered up in the previous classes. So basically cache mapping and this magnetic disk performance. So based on this I'll give you some assignments, so you'll do it and you will submit it. So any doubts up till now? Any doubts? Please reply, because I cannot understand whether the stream is continuing or not. Because if I open the YouTube live this dashboard also, then the speed will reduce. So I am not opening this. I am only trusting this chat box that we have got here. So is it clear? Any doubts? So next we will I'll not cover up the remaining problems, you can see for yourself. Next we'll move on to your RAID. So RAIDs are not that important from your computer architecture point of view. So it is more related to your DBMS and OS. But still you should know what is it. So also in much details it is not required for this subject, but you should know what RAID is. So as I was telling previously, that magnetic disks are prone to errors and also failures. So to address this, RAID schemes were developed. Okay, so what is the primary advantage of this RAID scheme? It ensures performance of the magnetic disk. So performance in terms of your access So you can have parallel access with the help of RAID, and also with respect to error correction and reliability. Okay, means even if some portions of the disk fail, uh, you will still be able to recover the data. So RAIDs are actually an arrangement of multiple disk systems. So although the overall system will see this entire thing as a single logical unit, but actually it will be a combination of multiple disks. Okay, so you can see the advantages and everything, it is given over here. So as I was discussing previously, RAID has got 7 levels. So RAID level 0, 1, 2, 3. So what is this RAID level 0? So if there are n disks that you have got, or n disk array you can say, so what you will do, you will break down your data into, so yes, it was about to start from 9, but I asked in group, right, that can we start from 8:30. Okay, anyways, I will upload the video, you can see it, watch it later. Means up to, if you have missed anything, you can watch it later. So what we did was, we were just discussing. Yes, but I asked in the group. So okay, if you have missed anything, you can see the videos. I will upload the video, you'll get the video in YouTube. And if you are having any doubt, you can ask it. What we have done is, we have discussed the problems related to your magnetic disk. So these are not that very difficult. Only some parameters were additionally included, which were your controller overhead, queuing delay, and nothing else. And we have also seen some other parameters like your formatting overhead, then data transfer rate, and check capacity. So you can just go through them once. It is not that difficult to understand. So what happens in, okay, we were discussing strip. What happens, you are actually dividing the disk space into logical units known as strips. Okay, now say you have got a n disk array, means you have got say 4 disks in this particular case. So what you are doing, you are placing the strips one after another. Okay, so here if you see, you have got 4 disks, right? So the first 4 strips will will be kept in the individual disk arrays, sorry, in the individual disk. So this first entire row, strip 0, 1, 2, 3, means the first n strips are known as a stripe, stripe. Okay, so this is a stripe of data. Then next is the second stripe of data, which is strip 4, 5, 6 and 7. First n logical strips are known as a stripe. So this is for RAID level 0. What you are doing, you are just placing the data in a round robin fashion, means you are placing an individual strip in a corresponding disk based on its order. So first strip is placed in the first disk, second strip is placed in the second disk, third strip is placed in the third disk, fourth strip is placed in the fourth strip, and fifth one will again continue from your 1. Okay, so this is your RAID 0. So what is the advantage? Okay, it has got some, or it supports some sort of parallel access, means if the strips are located in multiple or in separate disk, you can go for parallel access. Okay, so it has got some high data transfer rates and so. But what is the disadvantage? It is not immune to disk failures. Okay, so if a particular disk fails, you cannot recover the data. So next comes what, your RAID level 1, which is also known as mirrored scheme. So here what happens, so all the strips will, so or rather all the disk will have copies of it. Okay, so disk 1 will have its copy, disk 2 will have its copy, disk 3 will have its copy, disk 4 will have its copy. So here you actually required twice n disk. So if you are going to logically store the data in n disk, physically you actually need to have twice n disks. Okay, so what can be the advantage here? Here one advantage is you can read parallelly from the disks, no problem. Or you can also reduce, means whichever head is closest to the sector within the disk, you can read it from that particular disk. So as a result, the processing or the I mean processing delay will reduce. Okay, for accessing the or for any sort of IO request. Also, if a particular disk is lost, you have its copy. Okay, but there is no error correction mechanism, means if error comes up in a particular disk, you cannot correct it. Okay, so to solve this, what they have done, they have gone for this RAID level 2. So here redundancy is brought with the help of Hamming code. So Hamming code is actually an error correction mechanism. So you will get to know this in your network and later subjects. So for this reason I was telling that it is not that important for your computer architecture, because it requires some sort of advanced concepts. So traditionally or ideally you can remember is it requires log n, log of 2 log of n base 2 n extra disk to accommodate this or to implement this Hamming code error correction mechanism. So based on the individual strips, appropriate Hamming code will be stored in these disks which are marked in your gray. Okay, so you can read this, it is there in the description, sorry, in the PDF. So RAID level 3, so what happens here, it is having a bit interleaved parity, means bit by bit parity, means if parity is evaluated for bit position 0, it will be evaluated for this bit position 0 in second disk, third disk, fourth disk, and the overall parity will be stored in this parity disk. So a separate disk is assigned to maintain this parity. So rest of the schemes are your basically having this error correction mechanisms, and these are just the modifications of the same, means the same thing only. So RAID level 4, sorry, RAID level 2 to 6, they all have got this error correction mechanisms. Next, block level sorry, RAID 4, it is your block level parity, means what, here it is not evaluated bit by bit, instead it is evaluated block by block. Okay, next comes your RAID level 5, block level distributed parity. Now what is the disadvantage of with this particular schemes? It is that if the disk which is responsible for storing this parity information, if this is failed, so your entire system will actually collapse. So for this reason, what they have done in the next scheme, they have placed the parity blocks sequentially, means if I have got logically, if I am telling that I have got 4 disks, so additionally I will keep one more disk, so 1 2 3 4, so parity will be evaluated for the first 4 blocks and it will be kept in the next disk. Okay, so 4 5 6, so you see here for the remaining blocks it is kept here. Okay, so and so on, so likewise it is being kept, so it is block level distributed parity. After this you have got this RAID level 6, it is your dual redundancy scheme. So here what happens, you are evaluating not just one redundancy measure, you are evaluating two redundancy measures. like P and Q. So this P and P functions actually denote the error correction functions. Okay, so it is only the pictorial representation. So here P will be evaluated for first and n disks. So here 4 is the logical setup. So Q is also getting evaluated for the first 4 blocks, and it is stored in the subsequent blocks. So likewise it is stored. So you can read this, it is there in your PDF, and just go through it once. It is not that important for your computer architecture, but it is very essential for your operating system and DBMS, because DBMS, they go for this organization, database management system. Why? Because a lot of data is stored, and it is not stored in a single disk. If you have ever seen servers, you will see that multiple slots, or you can say sectors, sorry, multiple connections are there to maintain the data. So there is always high probability that a particular disk is going to fail. So these schemes are important. Okay, next we'll see optical memory. I'll not go into much details of optical memory. I'll just explain this figure. So it is basically the backbone of your optical disk. What happens here? Optical disk, here information is encoded, means with the if this is a surface, okay, information is first placed in the disk with the help of something known as pits. So pits are just minute points only, you can imagine, on the disk, which actually store the information. So what happens here, when you want to read from that particular disk, you will shine, or you will point a low powered lasers. Okay, so you might have seen all the CD drives, they have got some lens kind of arrangement. So these are basically the lasers which will light up when you put a CD, or whenever you run the CD drive. So what happens is, this low powered laser will hit your this particular surface of the CD-ROM, and whenever it encounters a pit, so what happens, there will be a change in the light which is getting reflected from this surface. So based on this, information is read from the CD disk. Okay, and if it falls on this plane surface which is known as my land, so this light is reflected evenly, so there is no problem with this. Okay, so this is basically the mechanism for your CD-ROM, means how you can read the data from a CD-ROM. So you will shine up laser. So if it is getting reflected from pit, the intensity is going to get reduced, and if it is going to fall up in a land, it will be reflected with higher intensity or equal intensity. So based on this information, or based on this amount of light which is getting reflected, you can read the contents of the CD-ROM. So information is encoded in this land and pit, or in the form of this lands and pit in the CD-ROM. So next, this is the format, block format. So it is not, nothing is there. So only this sectors, mode, data, whatever is there. So this is the format for your CD-ROM block. So DVD is also having the same technology, only thing is the density. Okay, so CD-ROMs, if you see this particular diagram, CD-ROMs, this you can say these speeds and these values are smaller in comparison to your CD-ROMs. So for this reason, we DVDs are having higher storage with respect to my CD-ROMs. So bits are placed more closely on a DVD than your CD. Okay, so just read it. This is only theoretical. You just need to remember their mechanism, how they work. Next comes magnetic tape. So what happens in magnetic tape? You might have seen cassette player, audio cassette player. So just the same thing only. This magnetic tape will be there and data will be recorded sequentially. Okay, and whenever you want to read, there will be a read write head and data will be accessed from this magnetic tape. Okay, so again blocks are separated by inter record gaps. And one more thing which you have to remember is it uses a technique known as serpentine recording. So what happens is it starts from one end, so it will fill up the entire length of the tape. Next it will again come back and again it will start from the front end and fill the entire I mean length of the tape. So this is the working procedure for your magnetic tapes. So with this we have covered up your memory in your computer architecture. If you have got any doubts, you can ask. So from next class we'll start a new unit. Okay, so any doubts? Is the quality of video okay now? Pen drives are flash memories. Okay. Yes, the diagrams might be important for the important concepts. Okay, so it is important to an extent. Yes, pen drive, if you want, we can take it up, but it is, I think, not there in your syllabus as far as I remember. I think this evening session is only better because I think the streaming quality is good. Is it okay? Streaming quality? Because today morning also many of you were having the problem with streaming. Okay, then from tomorrow we will start from 8:30 p.m. Okay, 8:30 to 9:30 we'll try to cover up. Okay, then any doubts? Okay, I will publish the video and whoever have missed the part, you can watch it from the video. Anything else? This tomorrow at from 8:30 in the evening. Why? Nobonita. Because morning I have seen that many of you were having problems with the network. So I think evening there is no, because last two session evening session was only better, and if these things don't work up, it actually disturbs me while taking class. Morning also I was seeing some of you are telling that it is buffering and these things. So if there is buffering or if this sort of issue comes up, it actually disturbs while class. So I think evening session is better, because last yesterday also evening was good, evening session. Morning was actually horrible. Today also to an extent it was okay, but still some of you were having problems. Yes, it is slow. Why? Because see, whatever I am saying, it is being played, or there is delay in playing. Okay, to you. So by the time this screen reads it, there is a lot of delay, and I don't open this YouTube dashboard because no sir was full. No sir was full. Is there any problem? I didn't get what you tried or what you were trying to say. Okay then, thank you for listening. So I will end up the stream.